right, is that Abby?
Hi, Mr. Kenny.
You might not ought to use Christina's picture for a whole bunch of strangers. She might actually object to that. A bunch of adults that she doesn't know. Of course, on the other hand, she doesn't know who they are, and they don't know who she is, so. But that was a pretty funny thing for me to see when I logged in.
Your video or something. Oh.
She's been eating that. She let herself go home. So she's been in the room trying to eat graham crackers and get what she wants. That did her where she stopped saying, I'm hungry, and I'll eat later. It's very strange. I would think that once you had gone through that once, you would be highly motivated not to go through it again. Especially when it's so easy to avoid.
Yeah.
You know? As soon as you get hungry, start eating something. But I think it may be a matter of you have to plan a little bit in advance. So she should keep snacks in the car all the time. So if she's in the middle of doing something and there's nothing to eat that's handy, well, then it's pretty easy to say, well, let me just finish this, you know. And I do certainly understand that because I'm not good at planning ahead now. So I think that may be all it is. Thanks, sir. Hey, Helen. You should post that recap of last week. Abby's already on, actually. I will be there in just a second, but Helen says it's rude for me to eat on camera. So I'm finishing eating.
Zoom，我不知道。你刚是不是通过语音呼入进去的？我赶紧把自己放静音吧。
The boss is always supposed to have a beautiful secretary. The boss doesn't have to be handsome, he just has to be rich. All right, Amy, are you on? Let's see. Good evening, Dora. Nice to see you again.
Hi, Mr. Pierce.
Oh, for heaven's sake, Kenny.
Okay, sorry.
It's all
Or
right.
just say Mr.
Yes, it was some time before I found out that when Helen had decided to put my name into Chinese, that she had picked the carrier for P. That means, you know, obnoxious jerk sort of thing. Which I think she did on purpose.
But Pierce, I mean, what else can I choose? Or P. Do you know what that is?
No. Well, thank you for not picking that one.
So when I said P 先生 and then people say I am P type, I am P.
Because you're being obnoxious.
How
I'm doing okay.
When is your church opening back up? Do you know yet?
I'm not sure. We have like an outdoor event sometime, but I don't really know when it's gonna open back again.
Ours is opening back up on the 31st, but you have to make a reservation in advance to be allowed in,
Oh, I see.
so that they can make sure that there's a limited number of people who are allowed to come in, so that there is enough room to keep proper distance.
Yeah.
I know May. I know May's picture. May, are you there? And you're not showing the right. I don't want to show. We don't want to show the laundry room.
Is that better, sweetheart? I'm not doing the presentation properly. I didn't have the.
You're not showing the best part. So, who else is there? Who is Dee?
That's Dora.
Oh. Who is Crystal?
Crystal.
Who?
From tomorrow morning.
你好，叔叔老师。
Huh? No.
Crystal. Yeah, Crystal is one of the kids, and that is Abby.
Really?
Mm-hmm. And that's May, who I think just said hello to you, but I'm not sure you heard her.
Oh, okay. Hi, May. 我在辨认这些。
嗨，你好。
我在辨认。
你好，我埋肚子。
May, what is your daughter's name?
我们正准备吃早饭呢，我们要边吃早饭边听。
没问题，这个时间就是 breakfast time. She's about to have breakfast.
And I should make it clear that I am fine with people sitting and eating while we're talking. It won't hurt my feelings.
But you cannot eat.
Amy, how?
Hi, 你好，皮先生。好。
Oh, you had a question. You had a question, so let's go ahead and answer the question before everybody gets into the class.
Okay, yeah, sure.
About why I adopted kids from Kazakhstan. Because I fell in love with the two particular kids I adopted first. They were not related.
他在跟谁说？
They were 7 weeks across. What, Dora?
不是跟我说吗？他在跟叔叔说。
没有，他在回答我的问题。
Oh, yeah, sorry.
之前有个问题。
I should have explained what.
啊，他要回答他的问题。他说为什么？
对，因为那个叔叔不是说皮先生收养了4个哈萨克斯坦的孩子嘛，我就很好奇为什么他会想到哈萨克斯坦去收养孩子，就这个问题。然后他就说他回答一下，我要把这个搞在哪里？哎呀。
So Rusty and Sally had come to America, and there were 2 families that were supposed to adopt them, and those families backed out after the children got there.
我来翻译啊，可能有人还是需要翻译的。他在回答说为什么他收养了，从哈萨克斯坦收养了4个孩子。那么首先呢，2个呢 ，Rusty 和 Sally， 一个男一女，他们是被另外一个收养家庭给带动抛弃的。还是有的
Hello，叔叔。
我们已经
Hi，Kenny，你好。
先进入那个回答问题环节哈，然后说呢，那2个孩子 被人家呢是先收养的，收养了之后不知道什么原因啊，可能是由于他们不太会遵守家里的规矩啊，不知道怎么听他们的话呀。我这个翻译开始乱扩展了啊。他还没有在意。anyway 呢，然后呢就是他看到了。OK。
Rusty and Polly had come to America, and there were two families that were supposed to adopt them.
有2个家庭是应该要收养他们的。
And those two families backed out after the kids got to America.
他们来了之后呢，2个家庭又退出了。
And they were staying, so they wound up staying at the house of a friend.
他们就待在一个朋友的家里。
And I happened to go to that friend's house for dinner while they were there, and I met the kids.
然后他呢就去朋友的家吃晚饭，然后就顺便的看到了2个孩子。
And it was going to be a couple of weeks before they could go back to Kazakhstan.
然后那2个孩子呢，还要过了几个礼拜就要再回哈萨克斯坦。
So I offered to let the kids stay with me for those 2 weeks. And
然后呢，我就说让那2个孩子呢，这2个礼拜就跟我住一块儿。
And by the end of those 2 weeks, I loved the kids.
然后呢，2个礼拜结束之后，我就爱上他们了。
And so the reason that I went to Kazakhstan to adopt children is because those 2 children lived in Kazakhstan, so I had to go to Kazakhstan to adopt them.
那为什么要去哈萨克斯坦？因为他们本来就是从哈萨克斯坦来的。那么我现在要正式的收养他们呢，我就必须还要到那个孤儿院去。
But then once I had adopted them, I spent 7 weeks in Kazakhstan, and I spent 7 weeks at orphanages in Kazakhstan.
然后收养了他们之后呢，我就去哈萨克斯坦，在那边待了7个礼拜，然后那7个礼拜就在孤儿院待的比较多。
So I met a lot of other kids.
我又遇到了其他好多孩子。
And with one thing or another, I wound up for several years running a organization to help the kids who couldn't get adopted.
那时候呢，也花了好长时间去帮助一些孩子呢，他们是不能够被人家收养，有困难。
So I learned Russian, and I wound up I would go over there every 6 months or so.
然后我就学了俄语，然后呢，我就每6个月就飞过去一趟。
Which is how I wound up adopting 2 more.
然后呢，在这个过程当中，我又捡了2个，
So
像买菜一样的。
so that is how I wound up adopting 4 kids from Kazakhstan.
这个就是为啥收养了哈萨克斯坦的4个孩子。我就想起来，我就总觉得说，就像我们去菜市场买菜，看到2个，这2个没人要，拎回来。哎呀，然后又看2个，这个也拎回来。
So is that before your first marriage or during your first marriage?
During my first marriage.
然后是在第1次婚姻当中。
So it's before you have your own kids or after you have?
I already had 4.
Already have 4, so they are much younger.
有4个了。
Okay.
然后呢，我插一个小插曲，不是他说的啊，我说的。我跟他在那个网站上遇到的时候，当时最吸引我的，不是吸引我，就让我觉得很 curious。其实我并没有说什么一见钟情爱上他，我只是说看到这个人怎么搞的？为什么自己有4个孩子了，已经有了4个了，然后还要再去收4个？这个人脑子是怎么想的？我就在想，就是很奇怪这个人。所以呢，有这个好奇心，我就才答应他的请求，跟他聊聊天。
So I was tempted to say that the reason that I adopted 4 children was so that Helen would like me, but that
wouldn't be true. Okay, thank you very much.
But that,
I got it.
That would scare me away too.
All right, so should we start, do you think?
Yes, I think most of them are here.
Okay.
I didn't see Christoph.
Christoph. Yeah. That's
Oh.
all right.
Is that one? No. No，哦，是yes。鱼，庄子鱼是 Christoph 吗？
So everybody at the moment is muted. Just because we were getting noise from someplace and I didn't know whom, so I muted everybody. But if you want to talk, just unmute yourself. Because you should be able to. I tell you what, I will unmute everybody right now, and then that way you can decide whether you want to be muted or not. All right? Okay. Now, I gave you, you guys had some homework from last week, and I am telling you that we're putting that off for one more week because it takes a long time. It takes twice as long when Helen is translating, but she needs to translate because this is difficult.
啊，他说我要花2倍时间去翻译，我还没开始翻译呢，我忙呢。
So what I was thinking of doing in 1 week is going to take 2 because it's going to take twice as long.
啊，所以同学们上次布置的那个家庭作业，首先我就还没有做，我还没好好思考呢。他说下礼拜再说。
So we're not going to get to the answer to the homework about why we can't talk about God as our mother until next week. So you have an extra week to do your homework. Yes.
You are like the real master.
So do we need to write it down or just to think about it? Okay.
Just think about it. I'm never going to collect homework. All right. So I think it was Cindy last week that we were sitting around talking after the class was over, and she said something important.
就上一次结束之后呢 ，Cindy 她现在好像还没来，问了一个蛮重要的问题。
And she said that what makes analogies work is that the two things are the same.
他说是不是要那个类比可以成立的话，是2件事物要相同的。
And that's exactly right, and that's important. And it's not just that they have to be the same.
那个是说的对，而且很重要，而且也不是说他们要不只是说他们要相同。
They have to be the same in all the ways that matter.
他们必须要在很重要的方方面面相同。
So when you're using an analogy that God is our Father,
当你用一个类比的时候，比如说神是我们的父亲，
or light is a wave,
或者说光线是波，
the two things are not alike in all respects, or else they wouldn't be two things. They'd be the same thing, and you would be speaking univocally.
那这2个事物呢，它不是完全的相同。如果完全相同的话，那就是同样的2个东西，它就不能说是类比了。
But and they have to be alike in some ways, or no one would use it as an analogy.
但是呢，它们又必须在某个方面是相似的，那否则的话，人家又不能拿它们2个来做类比了。
So no one would say, I was about to use this example, and then I've got an image of a cat as just someone's using a cat as their image.
我正准备用这个比喻，然后突然有一个头像是猫的人出来了。
So we've got someone's helping me with a visual aid.
然后谢谢你，如果那个头像猫是猫的是Amy 啊。
Amy's helping me out. But no one would say, I like to think of stop signs as cats.
他说没有人会说，我觉得 stop sign 那个停车的一个标记会像是猫。
I mean, if I said, I find it useful to think that stop signs are like cats.
如果我说我觉得停车的标记和猫可以做类比，对我是有用的，我觉得这样好。
I mean, if I said that, you would just say, what?
如果我这么说的话，你会说什么？
Because obviously stop signs are not like cats. it would just be stupid.
因为很明显的这样说就很愚蠢，因为这个 stop sign，我不知道在中国好像没有这个 stop sign 嘛，有吗？反正就是一个标志。
中国有很少很少
啊，就是
就不像美国这么到处都是嘛，
对
吧？但中国很少，就是非常少，
在中国很少，对。So this is like not something they can really understand.
Yeah, I tried to
very
pick
well,
something
maybe.
easy. All right.
But anyway, I can tell them. 我跟大家讲一下，就是美国到处都有那个停车的标记，那就是人必须很自觉的，车开到那里的时候呢，你就必须停下来，就算旁边没有人。
It's just a traffic sign.
啊，
It's just
对。
It's just something that's not at all like a cat.
对，就是反正就是一个交通标记标志，然后呢是根本跟猫是扯不上关系的。
So a good analogy, the two things are alike in all the ways that are important.
所以刚才举的那个就是一个很糟糕的类比。那好的类比呢，他们必须是在各个重要的方面都是相似的。
Which immediately raises the question, what makes some things be important and other things not be important?
那然后可能很快你们又会问一个问题，哎，哪些方面是重要的，哪些方面是不重要的呢？
And the answer is, it's important for the problem that you are trying to solve.
那我们要看的是它对你想要解决的这个问题是不是重要的。喂，我们要对那个比如说 Caleb， 比如说这个Carolyn 啊，就是你们英文非常好的孩子们，要容忍一下，我们在有这个中文的翻译啊。
Oh, it's in English and Chinese. They can just listen. But every analogy has a point.
每一个类比呢，它都是有它的一个目的的，想说明一件事情。
There are some things that are universal truths, right? 2 + 2 = 4 is a universal truth.
有一些呢，它是普遍的真理，叫什么？宇宙真理啊，普遍真理。
公理，我们叫公理，对。
比如说2+2等于4。
But analogies, there's no such thing as a universally true analogy. Analogies have points.
但是对于这个类比来说呢，它就没有什么公理哈，这个普遍的原则，它是必须要有它要想说明的一个目的。
So an analogy, a good analogy, is the two things are alike in all the ways that matter for the problem you're trying to solve.
好的类比呢，它就是会帮助你来解决，在方方面面，它都可以帮助你来解决你想要面对的这个问题。
So the dangerous analogies are the ones that they are alike in some of the ways that matter, but not all.
但是类比的一个危险的地方就在于，它在某一些地方呢，它是成立的，但是呢，在另外一些方面它又不成立。
Because there's just enough sort of truth mixed in to make it sound like a good analogy.
它这个类比里面，它有足够的一个真理在里面，让它听上去好是像一个好的类比。
So you use it, but you come up with the wrong answer because it's not right in all of the ways that it has to be right.
所以说，你如果用它的话，也有可能带出错误的一个答案，因为它不能够在所有的方面全部都满足。
So those are deceptive and misleading analogies.
那一些呢，就是会将人带入歧途的类比。
So now at this point, it may be occurring to some of you to say, well, then in that case, if everything the Bible says about God is an analogy,
那现在你们也许有人会问，哎，如果说是圣经上所有提到关于神的都是类比的话，
and if every analogy has a point,
那如果每一个类比都是有他想要说明的一个目的，
then how do we know what the point is for the analogies that God uses?
那我们怎么知道上帝要用那个类比是要对我们说什么呢？
And that's actually a really, really critical question.
那是个很重要的问题。
When the Bible uses analogies, the Bible is trying to make a point.
当圣经在用这些类比的时候，它也是要想说明问题的。
So this is going to be easier for those of you who are parents to understand.
那这个呢，对于身为父母的会更加容易理解哈。
If you're a parent, then you have had the experience, almost certainly, of you're explaining something to your child.
你如果是父母的话，肯定就有这样的经验了。当你对孩子要想解释什么东西的时候，
And the child hears, you say 5 things, and they're all trying to establish one point.
你讲了5点，都是想说明同一个问题。
And the child hears one of the 5 things that you said and goes off in a completely different direction.
然后孩子呢就抓住了其中某一点，然后从那一点呢就哗走到另外一个极端根本不同的方向去了。
And you find yourself saying in English, no, 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 that's not my point.
然后在这个英文里面，你就会说，妈，不，那个不是我想要讲的东西 ，not my point，
But that's not what I was trying to say.
不是我要讲的那一点，不是我要说的。
So when we read the Bible,
那当我们读圣经的时候，
we have to be careful to make sure that we are trying to pay attention to the points God's trying to make.
我们要注意的是，我们看到的呢，必须是要努力去看上帝要向我们表明的。
Just like when we're listening to other people talk,
就像我们听其他人讲话的时候，
we have to be paying attention to what they're trying to say.
我们也要注意他们要想表明什么。
So, in effect, what we have to become is we have to become good listeners.
我们要做一个好的倾听者，
We have to become good listeners to God the same way we become good listeners to other people.
我们要成为对神的话语的好的倾听者，就好像我们对别人也要成为好的倾听者一样。
So, the
倾听有个歌来着，sorry。
no worries. So, I will tell you what after 50 years of reading the Bible,
读圣经50年之后，我要告诉你们的。我在想，他确实3岁就开始读了。
I'll tell you what I think,
我告诉你我是怎么想的，
and you are allowed to disagree with me,
你可以跟我有不同意见。
but this is what I think. I think everything in the Bible is there fundamentally in order to help us feel about God what we should feel.
我觉得圣经最主要的呢有2点，第一就是帮助我们，要去理解上帝，
and to help us do what pleases him.
然后帮助我们去做讨他喜悦的事情。
And if you think about it, one of the reasons I've come to believe that's true is because of what we were talking about last week about our head and our hearts.
我为什么觉得是这样的呢？是跟我们上一节课讲的有关系，关于我们的头脑和我们的心。
Our heart is who we are.
我们的心表示我们是什么样的人。
And what the Bible is there for is to get our hearts right.
圣经在那里的作用主要是要帮助我们的心，能够在一个正确的位置。
Because our heart controls 95% of what we do.
我们的心呢，控制大概我们95%的行为。
And most of what we do is controlled by what we feel.
然后我们的行为绝大多数又是根据我们的感情，被我们的感情控制的。
And our heart pretty much controls all of how we feel.
我们的心呢，基本上又控制了我们所有的这个感觉。
And what we think really doesn't matter very much at all unless it winds up showing up in our actions.
我们怎么想的不是那么重要，除非等到我们全部把它付诸于行动的时候，才重要。我们怎么想才重要。
So if the Bible is going to try to solve all the things that are wrong with my heart,
如果圣经是想要来解决我心里面的绝大多数的问题，
and also all the things that are wrong with Helen's heart,
然后呢又要解决 Helen 的问题，
and all the things that are wrong with Amy's heart and Maggie's heart,
又要解决 Amy 的问题 Maggie 的问题，
the Bible's got a whole bunch of different problems that it needs to solve because we're all very different and we're all messed up in very different ways.
那圣经就要处理很多很多的问题，因为我们每个人都是不一样的，然后呢我们又都是破碎的、有罪的、有问题的，又是在不同的方面有问题。
So there's I thought I had a copy of it down here and I don't. Do you know where that conceptual blockbusting book is?
Let me see.
I apologize. I thought I had prepared better. Are you guys familiar? There's a phrase in English, when all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
Call me total solution.
There you go.
Yes. I think consultant, sometimes people complain consultant use this word. 就是当你看这个当你手里有个锤子的时候，你看所有东西都是钉子，因为你什么事情都用榔头去敲了。
Exactly. So if you only have one tool and it's a hammer,
如果你只有一个工具，这是锤子，
then you can drive a nail and you're in good shape.
那你可以去钉钉子，是没问题的，好的。
And there are other problems that you can solve, although it's a lot easier to solve them if you have a better tool than a hammer.
但是呢，其他还有很多的问题呢，是你如果用其他的工具，除了这个锤子之外的工具去解决才好的。
And there are some problems that you can't solve at all. You
然后
can't chop down a tree with a hammer.
还有呢，有一些问题你是用这个锤子根本没有办法解决的，比如说一棵树，你就不能拿锤子去把它砍了。
So if you go look at an auto mechanic's shop, a professional auto mechanic, he has lots and lots of tools, hundreds of tools.
你如果去那个专业的是吧修车店去看他们有很多很多很多的修车的工具。
And some of those tools he uses a lot.
有一些工具他用的很多。
Because there are some tools that are useful for lots of different things and you can solve lots of different problems with them.
因为有一些工具呢，它就是多种用途的，它能解决很多的问题。
Some of them, you can only use them for one thing.
但有一些呢，它只有一个专一的用途。
So my dad and I used to change the oil on our own cars because I'm old enough to have been born before there was a Jiffy Lube.
What's Jiffy?
The oil places where you drive in and they change your oil in 5 minutes.
他说我和我爸和我，曾经是自己要换那个车油的，那个时候还没有那种你可以开车去，然后他们帮你换。
So we had a tool that we kept in the garage that was an oil filter wrench.
我们在车库里面就有一个工具，就是专门用来换油的。
And the only thing you would use that tool for was to take an oil filter off and then put it back on.
它唯一的用途是干嘛？
Oil filter. You unscrew it from the bottom when you change your oil.
哎呀，反正它唯一的用途，哎，那个车我也搞不懂啊，反正就是去换那个油。
Sorry, I gave you complicated words and I forgot oil filter.
Yeah.
But it did that one thing really, really well.
但是呢，那个就非常有用，非常管用。
And if you had that tool, it was easy to change your oil.
如果你有那个工具，就好换了。
And if you didn't have that tool, you could change your oil, but it would take a long time and you would probably mess up at least one oil filter before you got done.
如果没有它的话呢，就要花好长时间，甚至呢还能够把这个搞坏。我刚刚查了 ，oil filter 叫滤油器。哦
There you go. So this book, this is a great book, by the way. It's a classic book on problem solving.
这个是一个经典的关于解决问题的，叫什么？
That's got the Chinese name in it.
哎，我写了中文是什么？我看看。
Well,
哦
you've already seen it. It's in your handwriting. Helen can put it in the chat.
突破思维的障碍。哦，
So one of the main points of this book
这本书的一个主要观点是，
is that the people who are good at solving problems,
比较擅长于解决问题的人呢，
they have lots of intellectual tools in their intellectual toolkit.
他们呢，在这个什么智力的工具盒里面有很多的工具。
So what makes them good at solving problems is not so much that they're smart.
他们善于解决问题，并不是因为他们很聪明，
It's that if they start trying to solve a problem and they're not getting anywhere,
如果他们开始想要解决问题，但是呢却解决不了的时候，
they stop
他们就停止，
and they say, let me think about this a different way.
他们会说啊，我从另外一个角度来想想看。
So they don't keep banging their head against the wall.
他们不会一直头撞墙。
So if you only have one or two ways of trying to think about problems,
如果你想要解决问题，可是呢，通常只是从一两个角度去想，
then the only problems you can solve are the problems that can be solved in one of those two ways.
那你能解决的问题就只限于能被那两种工具解决的问题。
So I'm going to give you guys an example that comes out of this book.
我给你们一个例子，这个书上提到的，
And I'm going to let you guys take a couple of minutes to see if you can solve the problem.
给你们几分钟时间，看看你们能不能解决这个问题。
Okay?
我也不知道，我们来看看。
You already know this. I've already told this example to you.
No,
So,
you
yeah,
didn't
yeah.
give me any example.
So if Helen pretends to solve it, she's cheating.
I didn't hear anything. Okay, say it.
So there's a monastery at the base of a mountain.
I don't know because I don't know
Just-
this word. See, what is that?
Monastery.
What is that?
A monastery, a place where monks live.
对，修道院吧，修道院，对
Monastery
，is the yeah.
大概是啊。
It's normally from Catholic, right?
Yeah,
It's Catholic, yeah.
Catholics or Buddhists. You'll have Buddhist monasteries.
大概是修道院。
All right, so, and this is a very, very steep mountain on all sides, and there's only one path to the top.
Monastery， 哦，是很陡峭的山，然后呢，一座很陡峭的山，然后只有一条路啊 ，only one what？
Only one path to the top.
这上山只有一条路，叫什么？华山。
And the monastery has put a chapel on the top of the mountain so that if any monk wants to get off by himself to pray, he can climb the mountain and pray by himself.
chapel 是什么？
Little church.
他们就在这个半途，修了一个小小的教堂。那么如果有谁要在半途祷告的话呢，就可以进去祷告。
So one of the monks decides he wants to go up to the mountain to pray.
那一个修道士就决定他要上去祷告。
So he leaves the monastery at 6 in the morning and he starts up the path.
他6点钟离开，开始往上走。
He's not in a big hurry. He takes his time.
他一点都不慌张，慢慢走。
If he gets tired, he stops to rest.
如果他很累了，他就休息一下。
A couple of places he walks past a flower and then he thinks, well, that was pretty. And he turns around and goes back to smell the flower.
有时候他看到一朵花，觉得嘿这个很漂亮，然后呢他还去闻一闻花香。
And eventually he gets to the top.
然后终于他到达顶端了。
And he prays the rest of the day and all night long.
然后他就 rest 就整天都在祷告，还有 the night too 然后整天整夜都在祷告。
She's having trouble translating because she's concentrating on drawing the picture so that she can solve the problem. So then at 6 o'clock the next morning, he heads back down.
6 o'clock a.m. 然后呢，第二天早上6点钟，他开始往回走了。
And he gets back down to the monastery in time for lunch.
然后呢，他到达了这个修道院，是在吃中午饭的时候到了。
Now,
lunchtime.
the problem is, prove that at some point on the second day, he is in exactly the same spot on that path that he was at the day before.
Again.
Prove that at some point on the second day, he is on exactly the same spot on the path that he was at exactly that same time the day before.
When did he arrive at the top?
Well, you need to translate first before you start trying to solve the problem.
然后问题是说要证明他第二天是6点钟从山顶往下走的，然后是在 lunchtime 中午的时候到达这个山脚的哈。问题是说在这个从6点钟到中午的时间当中要有一个点是 exactly 是他昨天在同样的时间停留的同一个地点。So to prove there must be a certain place that he was exactly there.
Exactly the same time the day before.
So I was asking you the first day when he was at the top. When? It's lunchtime too?
3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, maybe. Takes longer going up and coming down.
第一天爬上去的时候，可能下午3、4点钟到山顶了哈。Exactly the same time.
Go ahead and see if you can figure it out.
等等。
And if you get an idea, go ahead and unmute yourself and say it.
Yeah, just imagine there's another person. He go down from the top, and they must meet in the way. And if they meet in the way, that's the point.
Exactly right. Now, that's so in a group this size.
等，我还没搞懂呢。等，你的答案再说一下，啥意思
？No, but she's got.
就是说，如果你就假设有另外一个人，他从山上往下走，这个人说的，那他们肯定在路上会相遇的嘛。他们那个相遇那个点，就是这2个人，就是这一点呢。就你把他第二天走的路搬到今天来就行了。
你说假想有一个人从山上往山下走，然后是同时跟他一块走吗？
对，就把他第二天行程搬到这天来就好。
他往上的时候，那个人往下走，然后他们是会遇到的，对吧？
对，一定会遇到的嘛，在同一条路上。
你太聪明啦！
So I'll tell you. the interesting thing about this problem, and the reason that the guy who wrote the book used this problem,
他说为什么写这个书的作者会使用这个问题？其实他也讲这个答案给我听，确实是讲过的，可是我都忘了，我也没听懂他讲啥，没 figure out 出来。但是那个 Amy 讲了我就懂了。
Now we better go back to translate.
Yes.
Okay, so in a group this size, usually somebody gets it within a minute.
他说在这样大，我们大概是10来个人的 group 里面哈，一般呢就是有人会很快，就像 Amy 这么聪明的孩子，很快就能够 get it。
If nobody gets it within a minute, nobody's going to get it.
如果没有人这么快就能想到的话，那他们就想不出了，这个小组都想不出了。所以谢谢你 Amy 拯救了我们。
And the reason is, if you are someone whose mind works visually,
如果你这个人的思维是比较形象思维的，
then as soon as I ask the question,
当我
you
问这个问题
immediately
的时候，你马上
you picture it.
你就已经想到这个图片了，图画。
And it's exactly the way Amy said. If you just picture two people, they're going to meet and say howdy at some point. The
Sure.
paths have to cross.
就像 Amy 说的，如果有人从山上往下走，他从下往上走，他们总归会遇到的。
The moment you think of it as two people, it's easy.
如果你想到 Amy 说的这一点，就是假想到另外一个人，想到这个就非常简单。
But no matter how smart you are,
但是不管你多么聪明，
if your mind doesn't work visually,
如果你的头脑不是那样形象思维，
and you start trying to draw up a logical syllogism,
如果你
syllogism,
我 syllogism，
if you try to start using logic,
反正如果要用什么逻辑的等式啊，就是如果去算的话，
or you get an engineer and they start trying to figure out mathematical equations,
如果这个什么工程师要去算这个数学的等式的话，
or somebody starts trying to figure out tries to think of all the different ways that you have no chance.
反正如果是用其他的方法，你是想不出来的。
If you think about the problem the right way, it's easy. And if you don't think about it that way, it's impossible.
如果你用了正确的方法去思考这个问题，解决就非常简单。但是如果你想不到这一点，就很难很难。
So the whole point of the conceptual block busting is
这本书叫《突破思维的障碍》，最重要的观点是，
what you need to do is you need to be able to have a lot of different ways to think about it. So if you're trying to think about it logically and you're not getting anywhere, then you stop and say, what's a different way to think about the problem?
所以它的主要的观点就是你要掌握很多的方法去思考问题。当你如果用逻辑思维的方式去思考却没有用的话，你要赶紧打住。 然后就想啊，我是不是要换另外一种方法来思考？
Now, the reason the Bible gives us so many different pictures of God
为什么圣经给我们那么多的关于神的 picture 图片、图画？
is the same reason that a mechanic has lots of tools in his shop.
就好像这个机械师他有很多的工具一样。
And that is that the pictures that God's giving us, He gives us lots of different pictures because we have lots of different problems to solve.
神为什么给我们那么多的图画、那么多的比喻？就是因为我们有各种各样不同的问题要解决。
And there are some, a hammer, you can do a whole bunch of stuff with a hammer, and you can do a whole bunch of stuff with a screwdriver.
锤子呀，还有这个 screwdriver 什么螺丝刀啊，螺丝刀，你可以有很多的用处。
So there are some of the images that the Bible gives us that you can solve lots of problems with those. So God is our Father.
那圣经给我们的一些类比的这个图画，比如说神像父亲，那这种呢，它可以解决很多的问题。
Right? then there are other ones that there's only a very small places where you can use them. They're for very specific purposes, like
但是有其他的一些比喻的图画呢，就只能在很小的范围内使用。
like there are two parables in which the character who's like God, one he's an unjust judge, and the other they're both jerks. And you can only use them to solve the one particular thing, which is that we need to be persistent in prayer.
那有一个比喻里面讲到，一个不公正的法官，然后a judge and what？
The unjust judge and the lazy neighbor.
还有这个不勤劳的、懒惰的工人。那它的用途就是要让我们可以勤快的去祷告。
So those two parables are like my oil filter wrench. They
那
only do one job, and you need to not use them to do other jobs.
Are you sure? Just one job?
Well, how many things do you think are worthwhile to think of God as an unjust judge or a lazy neighbor?
Anyway， 他
It's
说
just
这
one
个
thing that you can use it for.
我没有仔细学习啊。Anyway， 他说的我就尊重。那这样的比喻呢，只是让我们要勤快的去祷告，在其他的地方可能就用了行不通。
But there is no picture of God that will solve all our problems.
但是没有任何一种比喻，是可以解决我们所有的问题的。
And this is why it is so important to read the whole Bible.
所以这也是为什么我们要阅读整本圣经。
And it's also why you shouldn't be too terribly depressed if you read a part of the Bible and you're just like, I don't even, what is this? This makes no sense.
而且呢，当你读到圣经当中某个部分的时候，如果你觉得完全搞不懂在讲什么，也不要觉得太沮丧。
A lot of times the reason that part of the Bible doesn't make any sense to you is that you haven't yet run into the problem it's supposed to solve.
有可能你不了解的原因就是你还没有碰到那样的问题，需要用那个比喻来解决。
But God wants us, remember the Holy Spirit, Jesus said he would send the Holy Spirit, and he said the Holy Spirit would remind the disciples of what Jesus had already told them.
记不记得耶稣说圣灵来，他是要提醒圣徒们关于一些耶稣以前曾经讲过的话。
And so if we read a passage of scripture and we don't understand it now,
如果我们读一段圣经，现在我们还不理解，
since we have read it, that means that when we do run into the time when we need it, God can say, now remember what I said.
那因为我们已经读过了呢，然后以后我们遇到这样的问题需要用这个来解决的时候呢，圣灵就可以提醒我们了。
And I think if you talk to people to pretty much any Christian who's been following God for 20 or 30 years, they will be able to tell you about passages of scripture that they had read over and over. And then they reached a point in their life when they read it and they said, oh, now I get it.
如果是你去问一些信主很久的，可能是20年、30年的基督徒，也有这样的可能。有一些经文读了一遍又一遍，到现在目前，直到我遇到这个问题了我才明白他真正讲的是什么意思。海燕给你竖了个大拇指。
So now there's one other thing that I want to try to get in tonight, and we may go a little long, but
还有一点，我今晚想讲的可能会超出时间一点。
And that is, there's something we have to really understand well about ourselves as just human beings, not religious, just about us as human beings.
我们还有一点要了解，作为人，我们的人性上有一点我们要知道。Sorry， 我觉得有点热，我去空调讲一下。
I don't know where's it. I started to say, usually when she's speaking in Chinese, I can tell what she's talking about, but I have no clue why she just left. Can somebody tell me?
When she turn on the aircon, it's hot.
Casey, she said it's hot.
Okay.
Thank you, ladies.
So this is the importance of stories.
我都出汗了。What?
It's the importance of stories.
这是故事的重要性。
We do not live by facts.
我们不是根据事实来生活的，
We live by the stories we tell ourselves about the facts.
哎呀，我要写一下，我们不是根据事实来生活的，而是根据我们基于这个事实的，我们在这个事实的基础上所告诉我们自己的故事。
All of our emotions come from stories.
我们所有的情绪、情感都来自于故事。
And one of the most important things that goes on with our autopilot is our autopilot is constantly telling us stories about what's happening, and those stories tell us how to feel.
我们上次讲过的这个自动叫什么？自动驾驶仪，它是告诉，sorry, I lost it. Again.
So our autopilots are constantly telling us stories, and the stories tell us how to feel.
我们的这个自动驾驶仪是告诉我们故事，跟我们讲一个个的故事，然后呢，我们的这个故事来决定我们的情感。
So if somebody tells me something and I find out it isn't true,
如果有人告诉我一件事，我觉得它是假的，
the fact is that they said something and it wasn't true.
这个事实是他们说了一些事情，然后他们不是真的。
But how I feel about it will depend entirely upon whether I tell myself that they lied to me or whether I tell myself that they made an honest mistake.
那么事实是他们讲了假话，可是我自己呢，到底是怎么感觉的？这个就取决于我怎么跟自己解释，他们是在有意的撒谎呢，还是说他们是犯了一个叫诚实的错误，就是他们并不知道。
So imagine that I am walking down the aisle in a train.
You said that last time.
I use this all the time. It's a good story, so I use it over and over.
他讲过了，再来一遍。如果我在这个火车的车厢里面走路，
And just as I'm coming up next to someone, they stick their foot out into the aisle and I trip over it.
然后我走近到一个人的时候，他把他脚伸出来，然后我就摔倒了，绊倒了。
Now, whether or not I get angry
我是不是会觉得生气，
depends on whether he did it on purpose,
取决于他到底是不是有意做的。
right? I don't get mad at somebody who didn't realize I was there and he was just stretching.
如果有人他不知道我在那里，他只不过是伸伸懒腰、动动腿，然后绊倒我了，我不会生气。
But if I think he was trying to trip me, I get angry.
如果我知道，如果我认为他是有意要绊倒我的，我就会生气了。
But you notice what makes me angry is not what's going on inside his head.
你要注意到，我是不是会生气，并不是取决于他脑子里是怎么想的。
What makes me angry is the story I tell myself about what's going on inside his head.
来决定我是否生气呢？是通过我自己告诉我的关于在他脑子里上演的故事情节。
In other words, what makes me angry is what's going on inside my head.
所以呢，
not what's going on inside his.
取决于我是否生气，是取决于我自己脑子里的故事，不是取决于他脑子里发生的事情。
So the thing that you have to understand about the pictures that the Bible draws about God
我们要想了解圣经里面所说的关于上帝的那些比喻、图画，
is that they are not so much pictures as they are stories.
其实他们并不是图画，他们都是故事。
We have stories that we tell ourselves about fathers.
我们有告诉自己的关于父亲的故事，
And there's a way that we feel about a good and loving father.
我们对一个有爱的好的父亲是一种感觉。
When the Bible tells us that God is a good and loving father, it is telling us to tell that kind of story, that we should feel about God the way we feel about a good and loving father.
所以当圣经告诉我们说，哎，神是像父亲那样的时候，他是要叫我们，他的目的是想让我们想到一个好的慈爱的父亲的感觉。
So we don't, what affects us is not the bare fact God is like a father.
但是影响我们的并不是说这个事实，上帝像父亲。
What affects us is the stories that get kicked off by our autopilot when we start talking about a father.
那真正影响我们的是，当我们听到这个上帝像父亲的时候，我们脑子里想象到的是怎样的故事，关于父亲的故事。
So that immediately raises several questions. So
那马上就会产生几个问题。
there are three important ones that there isn't time to do in the rest of tonight. So I'm pushing them off to next week.
有3个很重要的，我今天晚上来不及讲，所以下一次讲。
So one of them is, all right, fine. So the Bible gives us all these stories about God that are supposed to change our hearts. But how are we supposed to use the Bible stories to change our hearts?
圣经告诉我们那些关于上帝的故事是要来改变我们的心的。那么我们到底怎么样去利用那些故事来改变我们的心呢？
The second thing is,
第二件事，
what if my heart is messed up because of bad things that have happened to me, so that when the Bible says something about God that's supposed to be good, my heart says something bad.
那如果是说我的心里面是被是受过伤的，是很糟糕的一个状况，那么圣经想要提醒我想到好的故事，要有好的感觉，但是我却不能够拥有，怎么办？
So if my father was an alcoholic, adulterous, violent, abusive jerk,
如果我的父亲是一个酗酒的、暴力的、有出轨的、各种各样的坏的形象的，
if every time that you say father, my heart immediately starts telling a story that you ought to tell about the devil and not about God,
那如果是圣经每一次讲到神像父亲的时候，我马上想到的就是我那个其实要用魔鬼邪恶来形容的那个父亲，我的心是那样想的，怎么办呢？
well, what am I supposed to do about that?
我该怎么办呢？
And the third thing is, why does the Bible say that there are some things that we're just not allowed to say about God? That there are some stories that we're not allowed to use?
为什么圣经又提到有一些事情我们是不能够用来形容上帝的呢？
Right? Why does the Bible
Like
say
what?
that there are some things that are false teaching?
有一些是错误的教导 ，like what？
Why can't I say if there's a particular way of talking about God that makes me feel the right way about God, why can't I use it? So if saying that God, if calling him God makes me not like him, but calling him goddess makes me feel the way about him that I should, why can't I call him a goddess? If it works for me, why can't I use it?
如果一个称呼对我 ，What's goddess？
That female form of a god.
啊，女神啊，
嗯哼
哦，如果称呼神是上帝，我不觉得感觉很好，我叫她女神让我感觉很好，那我为什么不能那样呢？
And those are all three very good questions. And the last two you can absolutely ask honestly, and they deserve real answers. But it would take all night to answer them. So we will do that next week.
他们都是很好的问题，都需要诚实的、认真的对待，但是需要花很多时间，所以呢，我们就下一次。
Which is why your homework gets put off a week, because to answer that question is one of those three questions. But what I do want,
所以呢，你们的这个家庭作业可以再推迟1个礼拜，因为上次的作业就是说，哎，那如果我觉得我称呼上帝是母亲，我觉得更舒服，我的脑子里对母亲的印象是好的，感觉是好的，那我为什么不能用呢？
But what I do want to do before we stop tonight is I want to focus on the stories that we tell ourselves about other people and how that affects how we feel about other people and how we get along with them.
我今天想说的一点呢，是说我们脑子里告诉自己的关于别人的故事，我们应该怎么样去对待它，能够帮助我们和别人更好的相处。
Because the way it's easier to see how it affects our relationships with other people, but we tell stories about the stories we tell about God work the same way that the stories we tell about other people do.
我们告诉自己的关于上帝的，
Oh, that's mine. Sorry.
这些故事呢，和我们告诉自己关于别人是怎样怎样的故事是相关的。
And I'll try to keep this within about 20 minutes, so we don't go too
努
long.
力控制在20分钟之内。
So the stories, so my father told me something when I was very young that was extremely important and has been extremely valuable to me because he was right.
我很小的时候，我的父亲曾经跟我讲过，就是对我非常重要的一件事情，它是很正确的。
And that was when you hear somebody making an accusation.
当你听到别人对你有什么控诉的时候、控告的时候、
If
指责的时候，
if Maggie is accusing Amy of something,
如果 Maggie 在指责、控告 Amy 什么事情，
most of the time, the accusation doesn't tell you much about Amy, about the person being accused.
大多数情况下呢，他不一定能够告诉你 Amy 是怎么样的，
But it usually tells you a lot about Maggie.
但是呢，他可以告诉你关于 Maggie 到底是怎么样的一个人。
Most accusations tell you more about the accuser than about the accused.
很多的指责控告都是能够让我们知道这个控告的一方是什么样的人，而不是那个被控的一方。
Because so if Maggie tells me that Amy lied,
But what if it's just fact?
well, okay, Helen just said, what if it's just fact? The fact would be, it could be a fact that Amy said something that wasn't true. But when you say that someone lies, you say more than fact. you say more than that they said something that wasn't true. You are also saying that you know what was going on inside their mind because you know that they knew it wasn't true and said it anyway.
如果一个人讲的话呢不是真话，这是有可能的，事实有可能是这样。但是呢，如果控告的这一方说他就是一个骗子、撒谎的人，那么这个就告诉我们，这个控告的一方呢，他已经在他头脑里有一个印象，有一个结论，那个人是有意的撒谎的。
So when Maggie tells me that Amy lied, I don't know for sure what was going on inside Amy's head.
如果 Maggie 告诉我 Amy 撒谎了，我不知道 Amy 的脑子里到底是怎么想的。
But I do know what's going on inside Maggie's head. Maggie is telling herself that Amy lied.
但是我知道 Maggie 在告诉她自己 Amy 撒谎了。Of course, that's
Yes.
why you need to explain that.
So the reason that this matters
为什么这个重要呢？
is because we are really bad at mind reading.
是因为我们其实都不在行，都不大会去这个叫什么 mind reading 读心术，我们都不知道人家脑子里到底是在讲什么。
So if I want to make a guess about what's going on inside someone's head,
如果我想猜一个人脑子里在想什么，
then I need to be asking myself, well, what is it that they believe? And what is it that's important to them? And the thing is, most of the time, I don't know.
我就要问自己，他们到底相信的是什么？为什么那个对他们很重要？
But
但是
you'll,
大多数时间我是不知道为什么。
but you'll notice that usually we don't stop and think, now, I wonder what's going on inside their head. Usually our autopilot just tells us they're lying.
一般我们不会停下来思考一下，哎，他们为什么要这样做？他们在想什么？我们很自动的就会说，哎，骗子，撒谎。
Think of it this way, if there are 10 people who all do exactly the same thing,
如果有10个人做同样的一件事情，
they're likely to have 10 completely different reasons for doing it.
但是他们这同样的一件事情的背后，有可能是10个不同的、完全不同的原因。
For anything that we see someone doing, unless they tell us, here's why I'm doing this, there are probably 15, 20 different possible explanations that would all explain it.
如果一件事情发生呢，我们要想知道它这个背后到底是为什么的话，有可能有10个、20个不同的原因，可是我们不知道。
But what our autopilot almost always does is picks one and says, here's what they did.
我们的这个自动控制系统就告诉我们，就给我们选了一个，他就是这么想的，这就是他为什么要这么做。
It doesn't usually say, I don't know why they did this, so what I should feel is curiosity.
我们一般不会说，哎，我不知道他为什么这么做，所以我现在应该有的感觉呢，只是好奇，为什么？
It usually picks an explanation and it says, they did that because they hate you. You should be angry.
那我们也许就会挑一个自己认定，他做这个就是因为他恨我。
Or maybe it says, they did that because they're nervous and scared. You should feel sorry for them.
或者我们也为他们解释说，他们这么做是因为他们紧张害怕，我们应该为他们感到难过。
Now, in reality, there are two things that drive how our autopilot picks which story it's going to tell about the other person.
在现实的生活里呢，我们的这个自动驾驶、自动控制系统，会有2个因素影响它，告诉我们 两个故事，他为什么这么做，他为什么那么做。
The first is that because we are all sort of narcissists and self-centered, we automatically assume that other people are like us.
第一个呢，就是我们其实大多数都是比较自我的哈，所以我们也认为人家跟我们是一样的。
So usually our autopilot doesn't actually ask what was going on in that person's mind to make them do what they did.
Autopilot, is it just like
Your heart.
I know that
Subconscious.
is it subconscious,
Yes,
right? So I
yes.
can just say
Yeah, you can say
subconscious.
subconscious.
Okay. Say that again.
Our subconscious doesn't usually ask, it doesn't really ask what was going on inside their minds that made them do that.
我们的潜意识一般不会来问我们这个问题，说他们脑子里在想什么，导致他们来做出这件事情。
What it really usually asks is, what would have to be going through my mind to make me act that way?
我们一般潜意识问自己的问题是：如果把我摆在他的那个位置上，我是要有怎么样的一个想法，要有怎么样一个过程，我才能做出那样的事。
So somebody who thinks about everything in terms of race assumes that everybody thinks about people in terms of race.
如果是这个人他自己想什么东西，他都是从这个种族出发的，那他会觉得人家想思考问题也都是从这个种族出发。
Or if you know somebody and every time you talk to them, they have a story about a different person who has cheated them and stabbed them in the back.
那如果是你认识一个人，你每一次他跟你讲的，总是有其他不同的人，欺骗他、背叛他，在背后捅他刀子。
About the fourth time, they tell you another story about yet another person who has betrayed them. You should start watching your back.
如果当这个人第4次跟你在重复类似的故事的时候，你自己就要小心，你的背后是不是也要被他捅刀子？
Because if you've got somebody whose natural assumption and natural explanation for everything that everyone around them does is they're trying to get me, that person probably spends their life trying to get other people.
如果一个人呢，他的推断总是他身边所有的人都要在算计他、陷害他，很有可能这个人终其一生，他都在陷害别人。
But the other thing is even more important because it goes to what Jesus was saying when he told us to love our enemies.
那另外有一件事情也很重要的，因为他关于耶稣讲到说，我们要去爱我们的仇敌。
If you've got 20 different explanations for what could have caused a person to do what they just did,
如果你有可能20个原因来解释一个人他做事情的原因，
so some of those explanations will make that person out to be a nice person. They just made an honest mistake.
其中有一些原因呢，可以让那个人算成是个好人，就是他只是犯了一个无心之过。
Others will make them out to be sort of not too nice, but not too terrible, just sort of, a mild jerk.
其他的一些原因呢，也许让他们看上去不太好，也不太坏，中等的一个混蛋。
And others are all the way at the other end, and that makes those people out to be terrible, evil people that deserve to be hated and sneered at.
然后呢，再有其他一些原因，就是很极端的，可以让这个人，如果从这些原因去分析的话，这个人就是非常的邪恶、恶魔。
Now, what every person in the world will do, unless they are consciously trying not to, is they will tell themselves good stories about the people they like and bad stories about the people they don't like.
然后呢，我们基本上所有的人都会，对于我们喜欢的人，我们就告诉自己好的原因、好的故事，我们就为他们解释了。然后不喜欢的人就给他们最坏的解释。
And
Oh, that means I like you a lot.
It does.
Oh,
That does.
Good explanation.
That's exactly right. I can tell Helen likes me because she always tells good stories about me. No, actually, since she mentioned it, it really is true. The moment when I started feeling like Helen might actually be in love with me, there was a particularly stupid thing that I did that made her get up like 3 hours. She had to get up like 4 a.m. when she shouldn't have had to get up until like 7. And when she found it out, she was holding a cup of hot coffee, and instead of pouring the cup of hot coffee on my head, she said, "You're so cute." And I thought, holy cow, I think this woman might love me.
That's a very long story.
That's why I told the short version.
然后说到这个讲的对于你喜欢的人，你可能就跟自己讲一个比较好的 version 来解释他的行为。他就说到他第一次感觉到我可能会蛮喜欢他的，就是因为他大概提前3个小时把我从这个床上叫起啊，那不是从床上叫起，就是我们在刚认识在上海的时候，对对对，哎呀，应该是7点钟起床，对，他4点钟就把我叫起来，就是要送他去机场，但是呢是他自己搞错了时间，可是那个时候我手上有一杯咖啡，他说我那个时候没有把热咖啡泼到他头上，反而我还跟他说，哎呀，算了，你也真是太可爱了。那个时候他觉得我大概是蛮喜欢他的。
Now, one of the things that's characteristic of our enemies tell bad stories about us to themselves and to everybody else.
那关于我们的敌人呢，是有什么特征？我们的敌人就会告诉他们自己，关于我们的最坏的故事，他们也告诉别人关于我们的坏的故事。
And what we will do, what ordinary people do, is they tell themselves good stories about their friends and bad stories about their enemies.
那我们一般呢，也是告诉别人，哎，我们的朋友我们就讲好的事情，那我们的敌人呢，我们就讲坏的事情。
One of the things that Jesus is telling us when he says, love your enemies,
当耶稣说要爱你的仇敌的时候，
is that you should choose to tell the same sorts of stories about your enemies that you would tell about your friends if your friends had just done what your enemy just did.
他说的意思是，如果你的敌人做了一件事情，你的敌人和你的朋友同样的做了一件事情，那么你应该在你的脑子里告诉你自己的关于这个敌人的故事，他为什么要这么做的，他到底是怎么想的，要跟你的朋友一样，也就是从最好的角度去揣测吧。
So
Try to assume in the best way.
Yes. So you don't lie to yourselves about the facts. Okay.
对事实你不用撒谎。
But among the many choices of stories you can tell yourself about what was going on in their minds that caused them to do what they did, you don't lie about what they did, but you choose the story that you would choose to tell yourself about someone you liked. You would choose the story that made them look the best, not the story that makes them look the worst.
你不需要去篡改事实，不需要扭曲事实，他做了什么就是做了什么。但是呢，当你去分析他背后的动机、原因的时候，你把他当做你的朋友一样的去分析，你就是最好的角度去想。
So think about Jesus on the cross.
想一想耶稣在十字架上的情景。
He said, "Father, forgive them."
父啊，求你饶恕他们。
because they don't know what they're doing.
因为他们所做的他们不知道。
So you can see that he's not pretending that what they have done isn't evil. He's hanging on the cross. They are murdering him.
他并没有说，哎，并没有说，真的是否定这个事实。他们在干什么？他们在把他钉在十字架上。
But at the same time, and all the pain and everything else that he's in,
但是在所有的痛苦当中，
he's saying they don't know what they're doing.
他在说他们不知道他们在做什么。
Not, Father, punish them, they are murdering God.
他没有说，父啊，你要惩罚他们，因为他们在杀死上帝。
So I will give you an example from my personal life.
我告诉你们一个我自己的亲身经历。
Many years ago, I worked for a boss, and after a couple or three bad experiences, I figured out that just because he said he would do something didn't mean it would get done, and just because he said something didn't mean it was true.
我大概在多年前为一个老板打工的时候呢，大概经过3次的不好的经历之后啊，我就知道，当那个老板他说他要做什么事的时候，他不一定会去做；然后他说一个什么事是真的时候，那也不一定，有可能是假的。
So I could have said, he's a lying jerk.
我就可以说他是一个大骗子、混蛋。
But I figured out that it was mostly just that he liked to talk.
但是我后来就认识到，他也是就喜欢讲话，喜欢讲大话吧。
And his mouth was running all the time, and he probably couldn't remember a quarter of everything that he said.
对，他就喜欢讲大话，然后他自己讲的话，也许这个1/4都记不住了。
Now, I would have been a fool if I had kept expecting for the things he said he was going to do to get done. I had to recognize that just because he said he would do something, I couldn't assume that it was going to get done.
那我就知道他说要做什么，就不一定会去做。我如果是相反的，觉得他说什么就会说话算数，那我就很傻。
But because I assumed that it wasn't malice, that he just, talked.
那我认为他也并不是什么邪恶的人，他就是喜欢讲大话。
I was able to stay friends with him, and he was fun to hang out with. He knew lots of funny jokes. He was a lot of fun to be around.
然后呢，我就跟他相处得很好，他是个很有趣的人，会讲很多的笑话。
And I have to be careful when I tell this story because he's still one of my friends, and I wouldn't want him to realize I was talking about him.
我要讲这个故事呢，也要小心，因为他还是我的朋友，我不想让他认为我在讲他的坏话。
I just don't count on him to do what he says he's going to do, and we're fine.
You don't trust him.
In that respect, I don't.
那其实就是不信任他，这个是事实。但是呢，他还是可以做我的朋友。But what if sometimes the thing those people have done cause lots of hurt, trouble, loss?
Well, in this case, it didn't, so I'm fine. But there was another guy that I worked for quite a few years later.
然后呢，我几年之后又为另外一个人打工。
And in that case, the story that I told myself about him was that he was deliberately trying to set me up to fail.
那个时候我认识到的是，他是有意的，做一些事情要让我跌倒。But how did you know that?
And I came to realize many years later that I had done him an injustice.
然后呢，多年之后，我又发现我对他的这个论断是错误的，
And
不公平的。
And the problem, there was a completely different problem, and that he wasn't actually trying to do any harm to me.
那其实他并不是要有意的陷害我，
But by the time I realized that,
但是当我意识到这一点的时候，
we had already gone our separate ways, not liking each other.
我们已经分道扬镳，然后呢，彼此也都不再喜欢对方。
So first of all, I lost the chance to be friends with him. That I could have been friends with him the same way I was friends with the other guy, and I lost that chance because I told myself a bad story about him that turned out not to be true.
那么这个呢，就是首先就因为我告诉了自己一个并不正确的关于他的故事，那么我就失去了和他做朋友的机会，就好像我跟第一个人、第一个老板能做朋友那样。
But it was even worse than that
但是更糟糕的是，
because I had a very good friend who wound up marrying him,
哦，
and it cost me not just his friendship, but hers.
然后我又有一个很好的朋友呢，嫁给了他，结果呢，我那个朋友也丢了。You didn't tell me that.
So the stories that we tell ourselves,
所以我们不停告诉自己的这些故事，
facts are facts,
事实是事实，
but the stories we tell ourselves usually aren't facts. They're stories, and they reflect us a lot more than the other person.
事实是事实，但是呢，我们告诉自己的经常是故事，而且呢，它反映出来的呢，更多的是关于我们自己的内心，并不是关于那个人。
So the practical point of this, and this is where we'll stop tonight. The practical point
这有
is
什么实用的价值呢？
start paying attention to, especially when you find yourself getting upset with someone or thinking badly about someone.
特别是当你自己对一个人很生气的时候，很不开心的时候，
Try stopping and saying, wait a minute, what is the story I'm really telling about myself,
试着想一想说，
about them?
试着停下来想一想说，嘿，我在告诉自己，我到底在告诉自己关于他们的什么故事？
What are the actual facts?
那实际上这个事实是什么呢
And-
？Or you don't know them.
And is it for the facts that you can see, things that you can see?
And you can see is they are hurting you.
And is there a nicer story that I could tell about them that still fits the facts?
我能不能告诉自己另外一个版本的故事？它呢不违反事实，但是呢却是一个更好的版本，让我自己感觉更舒服 ，make me feel more comfortable.
No, that is. Look, the golden rule, right? Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Would you like for them to tell themselves the story about you that you're telling yourself about them?
黄金法则就是，你想别人对你怎么样，你就要对别人怎么样。那你是不是想别人，告诉他们自己关于你的好的故事呢？
Is there a better story that you can tell yourself that would still fit the facts? And so my father was a pastor,
我的父亲是个牧师，
and I can tell you that there are plenty of times in a church where you've got a problem in the church and one person has really done something wrong.
有的时候在教会里头呢有问题有纷争，然后确实有人做错了事情。
But there are lots of problems that come up in churches
但是在教会里有很多的问题，
where neither side started by doing anything wrong.
他们当中的任何一方开始的时候都没有做错什么，
Except that they told themselves a bad story about what the other person was doing.
但是呢，他们在脑子里就告诉自己对方做的错的事情、坏的故事。
It is remarkable how often the fights that divide people within God's family
在神的家庭里面呢，有一些纷争把人分裂开，
the first thing that is done wrong
但是第一件做错的事情
is when one person tells himself the other person has done something wrong.
第一件错的事情就是关于一个人告诉他自己，另外一个人是怎么想的，为什么要那么做的。
So we need to practice the discipline of telling ourselves good stories about other people instead of bad whenever there's a choice.
所以我们要操练，当我们能够有选择的时候呢，就要告诉自己关于别人好的版本的故事。But sometimes fact is fact.
Sometimes fact is fact.
No matter what you tell me.
Sometimes fact is fact.
我有点觉得难以理解啊，反正就有的时候事实就是事实，做错的事情造成的后果就在那里，不是我怎么想，有什么不同的。
But a huge amount of our problems comes not from fact, but from narrative.
Anyway, 就是很多时候，并不是那个事实啊，是关乎我们自己是怎么想的。
So when we look at our issues with our relationships with God,
当我们看和神的关系的时候，
a whole bunch of our problem is that our autopilot has a bunch of stories that it is telling us about God all the time. And the stories that our autopilot is telling us do not have to agree with what our head thinks we believe about God.
那关于神，我们和神的关系呢，就是很多时候我们潜意识里面会告诉我们自己，神的一些用意啊什么的。I think I lost the last part.
It's our heart.
I'm thinking too hard.
Our heart tells us stories about God.
我们的心，
And those stories don't necessarily agree with what our head says we believe about God.
但是我们心里面的感觉跟我们脑子里知道的知识上、理智上知道的神是怎么样的，是不一致的。
There are whole bunches of Christians that if you ask them, they will say, yes, God loves me.
有很多的基督徒，你去问他，他会说：“是的，神爱我。”
But their heart is telling them stories about God where He is not loving.
但是其实他们那时候，他们的心在告诉他们，神不是慈爱的。
And so they do not behave like people who think God loves them.
所以他们行出来的呢，就不像是那些人真的，好像认为神是爱他的。
So we will stop. We did an hour and a half, so we will stop here.
我们已经
Especially because that's difficult stuff, and you're having to concentrate hard while we're going. So I
已
don't
经
think.
有1个半小时了，所以呢，大家，我们现在可以休息了，也需要这个开动脑筋 ，concentrate 集中精力，思考的。
But then next Friday we'll talk about how God wants to use the Bible to get into our heart and find those false stories and change them.
False story?
False stories that God is just looking for a chance to turn His back on us, or alternatively that God, will that we can do anything and get away with it because His love is unconditional, or whatever false story our heart is saying.
下一次我们就来解决这个圣经中讲的神与我们的关系当中好多比喻啊，让我们引起这个误解的，我们虚假的告诉自己不正确的信息，比如说，神是反正无条件的爱我们的，那我做什么事情也没有关系，可以 get away， 可以逃开。
Yeah. So what I'm going to do next week is I'm going to take 2 opposite kinds of Christians. 2 Christians who have opposite problems in dealing with God.
下一次呢，我要举的例子是2个截然不同的基督徒，有截然相反的问题的，跟神的关系当中。
And talk about how even when we say God is our Father, that's not one story. There are lots of different stories that fathers are in. In some stories, fathers punish children. In other stories, the children do bad things and don't get punished, right? And you can see that. Go ahead, sorry.
就当我们说神像我们的父亲的时候，我们这个里面也不是光光讲了一个故事，也有好多的故事在里面。因为父亲都是不同样的，有一些父亲是不惩罚孩子的，有一些父亲是惩罚孩子的。
So there's the passage where he says, the Lord disciplines those he loves like a son, the father he delights in.
圣经里说，像父亲管教儿子一样，神也会管教他所爱的。
And there's also the story of the prodigal son, where the son comes back and the father doesn't do anything to him at all. He throws him a party.
但是也有在那个浪子回头的故事里头，那个儿子回家之后，他的父亲根本没有惩罚他，还给他开了个 party。
So these are both stories about God being a father, but they're two very different stories.
这些都是关于上帝像父亲的故事，可是呢，那都是不同的故事，不同的爸爸在里面。
So we're going to take two different Christians who have two sort of different and opposite problems, and look at what the Bible has to say to both those people, and why it is that sometimes the Bible looks like it's contradicting itself.
所以呢，下一次我们就来看看这些例子，然后呢，学习一下说，为什么有时候圣经好像它自己本身都还有自相矛盾的地方。Well, sometimes parents punish, sometimes they don't.
That's
punish.
right.
That's it.
Because you have different situations and different problems, and the Bible's got to solve all of them,
And we are
right?
like
And
that.
so we'll use that as an example to sort of walk through how we need to use the Bible in our lives, and also pastors, when pastors are trying to give people counsel and give people teaching, right? That whatever is the problem with our heart, the Bible has the thing that needs to be said. But that's a whole lot of using the Bible well, is knowing what's relevant. Where is it that we go where it's the right tool for the problem we're trying to solve? So
所以
we'll
呢，
look at
下
that
一
next
次
week.
我们就来看这个 so long。
I forgot that you were having to translate.
就来
I did really well until just that last bit.
就来处理这些问题啊，就是我们自己要来怎么读圣经，怎么来理解这些比喻，然后呢，或者是做牧者的，也是需要来看，在什么样的问题面前，需要用什么样的恰当的比喻、恰当的工具来解决这个问题，所以这个是比较实用的。
So I'm done talking for tonight, but you guys can ask any questions you want, or you can ask Helen whatever you want, or you can talk about shopping if you want. As far as I'm concerned, we can stay on and talk as much as you want. But I'm done with the formal part of the class, so I'm unmuting everybody.
现在呢，这个他的讲课结束了，然后呢，接下来你们愿意讲什么就讲什么，讲 shopping 都可以。如果有事情呢，也可以先离开啊。
Hey, Helen and Ken, so you mentioned next time we're gonna do, like, are you gonna take some examples from the Bible?
Yep.
Okay. So, or are we allowed to ask questions beforehand? It's like,
Yeah. You're welcome to do that.
I'm sure a lot of people have some, different sort of questions regarding.
But I have questions about
It's
translating.
it is a difficult topic because God has a difficult problem to solve, right? And what really, I mean, we're talking about some of the deepest and most complex and difficult parts of the Bible. This is the equivalent of the quantum physics, right? How is God going to change our hearts? And how is he going to do it within the limits of human language? And so this is, it's if you don't have any questions at all, then either you're really smart or you weren't listening very carefully.
I agree.
其实我在想啊，哎呀，他讲了那么半天，头都爆炸了。其实他不就是在讲我们中国人说的，你要把别人往好处想啊，不就这样吗？对吧？但是我的问题是，有的时候不管你怎么把别人往好处想，然后那个人他所做的事情，他造成的伤害，那个就已经在那里了，对吧？不管你怎么想，再怎么想也没有用。
By the way, Christoph and other people that came in a little bit late, I did remember to record this, so I'll try to find a place to put the recording. If you want to go back over the stuff you missed.
Oh, you recorded? Okay, we need to behave ourselves.
Too late now.
Haiyan, do you have a question?
Yeah, I just want to comment. I think I learned a lot tonight.
Wait. Sorry. First, do you agree with me? He talked about like so long about trying to tell the good stories. Like it's just that one theory in Chinese, right? 把别人往好处想. But sometimes, no matter what you think, the fact is fact. Hurt is hurt. Damage is damage, right?
Yeah, I know. But I think tonight it's a good reminding for me. And we are so easy to forgive ourselves mistake because we tell good story about us. We will find excuse for ourselves for make mistake, but it's hard to treat other people like we treat ourselves, because we always think their intention is bad, or we always think it's hard for other people to find a good excuse for other people, but we always find a good excuse for ourselves. I think that's a good very important thing I've been reminded today. So
well, and usually there are some people in our lives that we actually find it easy to tell good stories about.
Like
so
me.
I find it very easy to assume that Helen means well. And there are people in my life that I have to remind myself to assume at least the possibility that they meant well. And the people who are jerks to me, it's really hard for me to keep trying to tell myself, well, they could be misunderstanding. The thing is, so if this is the good side and this is bad, right? This is good behavior. Sorry, this is good behavior and this is bad behavior. All right. There are facts all the way around here, but so let's say that the facts are right here. There's still a range of explanations about their motives, about the facts, right? If the fact is over here, well, there aren't going to be any really good explanations, but there's still a range of explanations, and some of them make the people look worse than others. Right? So what happens is with ourselves and the people we like, we keep picking this side, right? We keep going as far to the good as the facts will let us go, and with the people we don't like, we go as far to the bad as the facts will let us go. Right? Even if what they did was bad, there's more bad and less bad.
Yes.
Right?
I think Kenny also mentioned if somebody come to you to complain about other people, what you learn is not about the people she or he complain. It's you learn this person who complained to you. That I remember I always tell my daughters, if somebody come to you to say bad words about other kids, they might go to other kids to tell bad things about you too.
That's right.
So that means this person might be a very easy gossip, talking person. So you have to be careful. She come to you, it's not because you are her best friend or something. it's because she loves talk gossip. So I think I agree with that. Yeah.
There's a really good book, very good book. I don't know to what extent that it is culturally specific to America, but it's really accurate for American junior high girls. And it's a book called Reviving Ophelia.
Write the book name for us, okay?
Oh,
Yeah.
hang on just a second. I'll just go grab it so I can get the name of the person who wrote it.
Okay, then maybe we can buy that book for our junior high school students. Girls,
Now,
yes.
ladies, we can chat.
We can chat about shopping.
哎呀，我还真有点想念 shopping。我突然想到说，哎，我今天我穿这个裙子，我突然想到，这个是我来美国第一次 shopping 买的裙子。
哇，那就是这么多年你都没长胖，好羡慕。
So this is
We
the
were
book.
talking about shopping.
Okay.
This is an outstanding book, and
I screenshot it.
One of the things that I tried to tell all of my girls when they were going into junior high school, and it's not something that I so much learned from this book, is that it was stuff that I knew but had never really thought through. And then I read the book and I was like, yes, that is exactly what's going on, right? So one of the differences between men and women is that men become friends by doing things with each other, and women become friends by talking.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
So most women in my acquaintance think that it is so bizarre and strange that two men can get up and go fishing together, and they can fish all day and never say a word to each other than, I need more bait and can you give me another beer? And at the end of the day, they're way better friends than they were when they started. Right? But
they are just weird.
But the other thing is that with junior high girls, boys are not particularly important, but the best friend is the most important thing in the world. Mm-hmm. And it is important to junior high girls to be somebody's best friend. Mm-hmm. And because girls establish relationships by talking, and because the concept of the best friend is fundamentally exclusionary, right? There can only be one best friend, right? And guys, the best friend concept is completely and utterly unimportant to us. We absolutely do not care.
Oh, so when you say I am your best friend,
it doesn't really matter that much. Yeah, it really doesn't. We're perfectly happy. If there's four guys and we all like watching football together, then none of us cares whether that guy likes hanging out with us more than he likes hanging out with the other two. As long as they'll watch football with us, that's good enough. I mean, why waste time worrying about, but it's this big deal for girls. So the problem is that what junior high girls are hugely tempted to is to talk to each other and run down other girls. But the trouble is, the best friend is like this most important relationship for the junior high girl. Only the best friend relationship for most junior high girls is highly unstable. The girl that's your best friend now is liable to be somebody else's best friend 7 or 8 months from now. Mm-hmm. And when they need to have something to talk about with their new best friend, one of the most entertaining things to talk about is all the terrible things you said about all those other people. So that all that stuff that you said comes back to the people you said it about. And the one temptation that junior high girls just desperately need to make up their minds that they're not going to do, even with their best friend, is to talk, to say bad things, mean things about people who aren't there. And it's an almost impossible temptation for teenage girls to resist.
Oh, you give us no hope.
I didn't say it was impossible. I said it's almost impossible, which means if you're not going to do it, it's because you're going to have to make up your mind in advance. This is something I cannot do. But it's hard, and it is so much harder for junior high girls than it is for junior high boys.
It's even harder for some adult girls.
Yeah, because again, because it's so much more important to talk if you're a woman. You know, talking is so much more important. I had a young girl from Kazakhstan once who discovered that I was willing to talk to her. She was, I say young, she was engaged. She was like 21. But Kazakh parents do not talk about anything even remotely related to sex until, you know, the night before the wedding. And she translated for me as I was talking to one of the young male orphans that I was trying to give guidance on not exploiting women. And she, you know, he got done, he left, and then she had lots more questions. So we talked a lot about the differences between men and women. But there was one point where where I was explaining the difference between women talking being important to women, and for men, talking is just a way to transfer information. And if there's not any information that needs to be transferred, then there is no need to talk, right? And so I said, Aigul, if you want to really drive your fiance crazy, here's how you do it. You sit next to him on the couch and you sort of snuggle up next to him, and then you say, we don't talk enough. And then he will say, okay, what do you want to talk about? And you say, I don't know. And then he will go, ah, right? And she says, oh, we have exactly that conversation every 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So I told her, look, it's not a problem. It's just before you have that conversation the next time, think of 2 or 3 things to talk about. And then you can say, we don't talk very much. And he'll say, okay, what do you want to talk about? And you say, have you seen such and such a movie? What did you think about it? And if you give him a topic, he can talk. He just needs a topic.
Yeah.
And then why sometimes you call me and say, hey, honey, I don't have anything to talk about.
Because I know it makes you feel good.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
I am showing that I care.
Oh, it means
That's sweet.
even you don't have anything to talk about, but you still call just to listen to my voice. Oh.
Yeah, because I figure you'll come up with something to say. Very rarely do you talk to a woman and she can't think of anything to say.
Oh yeah, we have lots of things,
So.
right? Thousands of things.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, that's a great book. You should get that book.
Okay. Yes. Thank you.
And you can let Carolyn and Christina and Abby, are you still on? Abby and Crystal, you guys should read it.
Crystal is there, right? Abby is not.
Yeah, I think we lost Abby. Emma's still there.
Emma's just gone.
Emma's like, I gotta get off before he says my name.
Yeah, okay. That's good.
Well, glad to have you here.
Yeah, I'm glad I come. I will come next week too. I'll try to come next week too.
He reminded me today. It was like, did you send an invitation to Haiyan and Wang Yue? I was like, they are so busy, they cannot come. And he said, I don't want them to think they're not welcome. So
Oh no. Yeah, you told me last week, but we had a study normally on Friday night, but this week it stopped. So I'm glad. I think
Are there any other questions? Like I said, this was pretty challenging stuff, especially if you're not someone who normally thinks about linguistics or logic. So, were there any other questions that anybody wanted to ask while you got me?
Jane, do you have questions?
I'm still trying to put everything together. I'm sure I have a lot of questions for the next lesson.
Oh, so Jane, are you in the WeChat group for this adult class? So we have a WeChat group, and then.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Jen. I'm going to add you in our WeChat.
No worries. I mean,
I just want to tell you that Kenny put the whole note on the basis of.
No, I don't want to.
in the WeChat group,
Very long note for last class.
For last class, okay.
So if you get into the group, you'll see it with you. And then you can combine that with today's.
That will make it, because today there was a lot of explanation last week about analogies and about the difference between univocal speak and analogical that was sort of presupposed here. And next week will be even more difficult for someone to come in if they haven't had the first week.
Right. Yeah. Actually, the lesson you teach last week and this week, it reminds me a movie. It's called The Case of Christ. I don't know if you ever watched that one. So it reminds me, like every time it just came out of my brain. Oh, this is. So I think that helped try to understand, how you try to.
Well, I didn't. I turned the recording off last week and forgot to turn it back on, but I won't do that anymore. So I'll put this out on YouTube, and now in China that's blocked. I don't know where to put it where anyone in China can see it, but at least in the U.S. You can come back if there's something in your notes where you got stuck. You can go back and re-listen to it, or you can just send a WeChat message.
Right. Yeah. Sounds good. Thank you.
WeChat if I have time. If it's something that I know I'm going to explain in the next thing, then I can just wait and explain it later. So if I feel like I'm not into it, I'll go ahead.
Yes, why I think it's also important for like church leaders or counselor like you.
No. I'm not concerned, but I think maybe you can upload this talking in your new website.
Yeah, you can do that in your website.
New website.
Your website.
It's very big, right? The size. How?
I think it could host. If getting more and more, then you can pay a little bit. I think it's not expensive to pay a website host. It's not, don't use it free, but paid, then you can put a lot of information on it. So.
Yeah, I'll put it on YouTube. It's just, I think that
some Chinese.
Some people can't get to it.
Yeah. But YouTube, I think in American or we can watch YouTube, but for some people in China, maybe it's easy for website. I don't know. It's a big project, but I'm thinking about maybe Helen can translate to write, Yeah,
I will try, but.
Yeah.
Actually, there's a pretty good chance, based on last week, that Maggie took really good notes.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Did you take note again today? Mute.
I got another note, but Emily interrupted me for a couple of times, so not very complete. I try my best.
Yes.
Good.
He did his according to your note.
Oh my God. I really appreciate
I'm
Kenny.
glad you took the notes, because that's how I remembered what I had said.
Yeah, I think like the univocal, like analogy, all these things, different pictures about God, why it's so important for us to understand. I mean, you can expand our vision or tell us how to think more clearly, right? And there are leader in the church will know there were so many fights, right? Just because one person think, oh, God is like that one picture, he or she just thinking that way. And then other people say other pictures, what they learn from other pictures and analogies, then they cannot accept. And then just lots of fights, disagreements, and the separation.
Yeah, a whole bunch, not all theological disagreements are meaningless, but a whole lot of the theological wars that have gone on. If you understand the difference between the univocal and the analogical speech, and if you know that everything that the Bible says is a picture, and it's a good picture as long as you use it for what it's meant to be used for, right? A whole bunch of the theological quarrels that go on, it's really obvious that what's happened is the equivalent of somebody getting a hammer and thinking that the hammer is the whole toolbox.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's somebody else who's trying to saw through a block of wood, and the person over there with the hammer is yelling at them, no, 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 God's a hammer. You should be using the hammer. You don't believe the Bible, right? Because they confuse one picture of God with God, and they sort of idolize that one picture, and they want to use it everywhere, even where it doesn't work. And so the sort of plan for the next maybe 4 weeks, after which I kind of run out, and we can then see what then after that I can sort of chase around whatever questions you have. But so next week we're going to talk about what if my heart tells bad stories about the Father, right? Why can't I call God? Why can't I say that Jesus is the bride of the church instead of the bridegroom if it makes me feel right about God? And how am I supposed to use the Bible to solve the problems? Right? How does this work? And I'm going to use. There's a theological fight, but that went on between the people in the mountains in southeast Oklahoma where I grew up, which is a fight between the Southern Baptists who believed in once saved, always saved, and the disciples of Christ who believed that even a Christian, if he turned his back on God and walked away, could lose his salvation. And they both had their systems, and they both had scriptures that each one of them felt like the scriptures proved their case. And so what I want to look at is how those scriptures were meant to be used, which is not so that you could fight with each other and say that, you don't believe in the Bible. And we can do that next week. And then once we've got an actual working example of There's a person who has this problem and the Bible addresses it here, and we have a person who has this completely different problem and the Bible addresses that a completely different way, and we've got that background. Then for the next about 3 weeks, we're going to take one particular image of God that Christians don't use very much, which is the image of God as creator. And we'll look at 3 different sort of difficult concepts of Scripture. So one is those he foreknew, he predestined to be conformed to the likeness of his Son. So the whole issue of predestination and the foreknowledge of God and so forth. The second will be grace, what the Bible means by grace. And the third will be faith. And it's not so much trying to learn about predestination, grace, and faith, although I think we will learn stuff about those 3 things. It's more about when you think about predestination, you have probably thought about predestination is usually cast in terms of the sovereignty of God. So when you think about predestination, you have probably thought about it in terms of God as king rather than God as creator. When we think about grace, when we think about faith, right, we don't usually tell ourselves stories that come from the image of God as the creator. So what we'll do is we'll say, if we're thinking about God this way, what does grace look like when we look at it from this perspective? What does predestination look like when we look at it from this perspective? What does faith look like when we look at it from this perspective? Not so much because that's the right way to look at it, as just because it's probably a different way from the way you're used to looking at it. And that I think will I don't necessarily expect it to change. I know a couple of people that looking at it this way, I have one friend in particular that he and I talked through this maybe 3 years ago, and he's told me since that it completely revolutionized the way he saw God. But it probably won't completely revolutionize the way you see God unless you're struggling with the same sorts of problems he was struggling with. And maybe you are, and in which case that'll make a big difference. But most of it's just practice. Just practice in looking at things from that different perspective and expanding the toolkit.
Okay, we should let people go.
You can go whenever you want to go.
If you stay here, they don't want to.
Yeah. From Chinese culture, if we leave before teachers say you are dismissed, we are not respected teacher. Right, Helen?
That was why I said that the class was through and you could stick around and talk if you wanted about anything, including shopping, was to say you can go because the class is over.
No, but you start to talking more important stuff, then let's start again. But thank you so much, Kenny. Yeah, it's good lesson.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah, thank Helen. Good job on translate. Your English is so good.
Wedding, because sometimes he would forget to give me some gap there, and I was like absorbing so much, like one paragraph, and 2 or 3 times I was like, whoops, I totally lost everything.
But good job. Yeah. Bye-bye. Good night. Enjoy your night.
Good night.
Bye.
那个 Ellen 你好 ，Emily 在这儿呢。
Crystal, I'm impressed that you're stuck in this long, assuming you're still actually there.
啊，对，叔叔，谢谢你啊。我去吃饭了，我饿了。
好，什么还没？
我还是准时的，谢谢啊，大妈妈你好。
Thank you, Kenny
叔叔。
See you guys next week.
Good night.
Bye, guys. I gotta go. So.
学习了
See。you next time.
See you next time.
明天学习
谢谢。
Bye, Maggie.
Bye bye. I am going to leave the meeting right about.
Oh, she's gone though. So it doesn't do any good for me to answer that question.
Okay. Is Crystal still there? Who is that?
So who is AWDS for
I
life?
don't know. Say hello to us.
I think it's Elijah.
Oh, okay. Crystal, I seriously am impressed. That's a difficult topic, and you were in for like 2 hours.
Did you enjoy it?
Yeah.
Do you feel like you understood it?
Sort of.
So, have Helen put into the WeChat the stuff that I said last week, which was explaining analogies and the difference between normal speech and analogical speech, and it will probably help you a lot if you go back and read that. So if you can get your mom or dad to show you that in the WeChat, that'll probably help a bunch.
Okay.
So well done. All right, well, I am going to sign the thing off. So Crystal, we'll see you tomorrow, and you have a great night.
Okay, you too.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.